Welcome to the Employee to Boss podcast, a podcast for everyone with an entrepreneurial spirit. Every week, I am joined by successful guests in all different industries and stages of business who will share what their experience was like transitioning from employee to boss. This is a resource for you if you're wanting to start a business, go all in on your side hustle, get to the next level in your thriving business, or just hear what it's like taking the leap to becoming your own boss. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast production agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. Let's dive into today's topic. Hey, Laura, thank you so much for being a guest on the Employee to Boss podcast. I am so excited to get into today's topic with you.
Thank you. It is so great to be here. I'm looking forward to our time together today.
Yeah, so why don't you start off by telling us more about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, I'm Laura Mak Quist, and I have been in the fitness and wellness industry for about 30 years now, and I've had varying titles throughout that journey, but I've had the thread of coaching people along the way on their wellness journeys, whether that's through threads of personal training or yoga, nutrition counseling, retreats, master classes. So, it's been a fun journey, and to see the evolution of it, which had started really back after undergrad in college, when I started my first home training business, and I had some really wonderful mentors that I got to work with. He was a strength and conditioning coach for our basketball team, and I had another strength and conditioning coach that worked with our hockey team. So two different types of training, and one focused on, we actually worked with more celebrities in the area, TV hosts, newscasters, things like that. And then with women that are busy women, entrepreneurs, things like that. So it was a great way for me to figure out what I really wanted to do. And as much fun as I had working with athletes, I really enjoyed working with women and seeing them forge ahead on their journey, and how not only after their fitness workouts, how it carried over into other areas of their lives.
Yeah, that is so cool. I love working with women as well. I feel like there's just a different energy with it, and it's definitely, I work with men too, but I think my marketing attracts more women anyway, so I'm absolutely right there with you. So tell us about, how did your journey from employee to boss go? How did you get to be where you are now?
Yeah. So I think I went to school at Michigan State, and then after I finished my master's degree, I moved down to Atlanta, and I did have a regular job at that time, and I was doing sales for a gym, and I just knew that wasn't my passion or my calling or my end all. And I connected with a group of really wonderful people who were able to encourage me, because I'd already had experience starting a business when I was in Michigan right after undergraduate school. And so they're like, yeah, you could totally make it here. And I was under the assumption that Atlanta was a big city and it would have been harder to build a clientele. But that wasn't the case. As soon as you find a niche, then you're able to attract that client and get referrals. And that was what the case was for me. And I had really just loved having, a supportive group of people that kind of encouraged me along the way. And I think finding your tribe is a big part when you're starting your business on your own. So having them to lean on, having them to encourage you, having them to, bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned niche, and I feel like that is such a big part of, building your business that so many people have questions on. So when you decided to, go off on your own and do what you do now, can you tell us about how you started building your niche?
Absolutely. So I started out working with more athletes, and in Atlanta there was a big hip hop scene. So I worked with some artists there. So that was fun, and it was it was a neat way to get more experience and build a little bit more of a name. But I discovered my passion was working with women and seeing them flourish, not only inside the gym, but also outside of the gym. Like one of my clients, she had never started a business, but she always wanted to start a program for kids with music. And as she continued to get stronger and built her strength, not only was that physical strength that she was building, but she was also building this confidence muscle. And that confidence was able to transpire into building a business. And then she ended up building this curriculum for kids and took it all over to all these different elementary schools, and she had a partner that worked with her. And so it was so fabulous to see this, that I just I kept getting more and more female clients, and I was at a gym, but it was like an independent gym, so I wasn't working for the gym, but getting referrals that way was wonderful. I was a professional athlete for a long time myself. I competed in the IFBB fitness, which at that time there was only two categories. There was fitness and bodybuilding. And so with my gymnastics background, I was able to do the fitness. It was a natural fit, natural progression in my mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I could dance, tumble, and do all these like fun, cool, like energetic yoga moves and on the stage. And then, so that would have been one avenue. I could have coached athletes, but even in that realm, and I did in some ways, but to me, I would do choreography for that. So I would help others in their preparation for that, the women getting ready, whether they're competing in fitness or bodybuilding. And because I wanted to work with women on their day to day versus trying to perform on the stage and do that. So I think trying different things also is a great way to discover where your true passion lies, and following my intuition, right? Because if you're still and you like listen, that's the hard part, right? That, okay, this is really the direction I should be going into. And maybe I'm trying to force this into something that is what someone else thinks I should be doing, because
Yeah.
I've got this experience and it should be a good fit. But you really, as your own business person, really know what's best for you and for your business.
Yeah. What are some things that you've done in the fitness space that, as we were talking about before, neither of us really worked for companies before we started our own businesses. Mine was because of the pandemic, and it just made sense for me to go off on my own. And being in the fitness space on your side, like, it totally makes sense to build up your own clientele and work, the way that you want to work with the people that you want to work with. So I'm curious, in your, years of experience, what do you think have been some of like the most important things that you've done to make sure that your business has lasted? Because there's a stat that like most businesses shut down after like 5 years, or they don't make it to the 5 year point. So how long has your business been around, by the way?
So about 30 years I've
That's
been,
amazing.
yeah, in the fitness industry. And, I think one of the things that has given me the longevity is I've added different components along the way. And whether it's a timing or a new passion or an interest, like I had a fitness clothing line for 10 years. So after I finished competing in fitness, I knew I needed a transition into something else, because as much fun as I had competing and performing on stage, there's only so many back handsprings and flips and so much dieting one can do in a lifetime. And
Yeah.
and I knew I wanted to go out on top versus on that decline. Like sometimes athletes come out and then they start, don't know when to retire soon enough. And so I knew I needed something to transition into. And at that time that's the opportunity kind of fell in my lap. And so I had a partner in my fitness clothing line in the beginning. And then pretty soon after, we discovered we had different visions. My vision was a little more bright, colorful, and fun fitness clothing, and hers was a little bit more navy blue and gray, and a different industry. And this was back in the early 2000s when fitness magazines were still really popular. And so coming off of competing and being popular in fitness magazines and knowing stylists, it was a great way for me to connect and say, hey, do you need some clothing for your shoot. What colors are you looking for? Oh, I've got those colors. How
Yeah.
about these outfits? And so working together with people, and as times have changed, those people skills haven't changed. So always knowing how to communicate with somebody, whether it's a client or another business, hearing what people say is another big thing when you're standing that longevity, right? You got to hear what is a need, and then you
Yeah.
got to provide a solution for that need.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that you follow your journey along the way. Like you follow what your interests have been. So I think far too often, so like I'm in the podcast space, right? And when I first started, which was, I don't know, like 8 years ago, like video
Mhm.
podcasts were its own thing and audio or video podcasts did not exist. It was only audio podcasts, right? So things like that, like the trends change, but also your passions change as well. And so that is really great advice of just following what's going on in your own world as well as like the fitness world.
Right. Well, and I mean, currently, like you would have influencers work with a clothing line. So it's a
Mhm.
totally different dynamic now. And if you were to have a clothing line and different types of sales and marketing strategies that you would use. So, I couldn't still use that model from 20 years ago. I would have to stay
Right.
up with the times. So, and as my life has evolved and I had children a little bit later in life. And so I needed to downsize and downsize stress. And so one of that was letting go of the clothing line and letting that move on. And so transitioning into being able to have children and understanding more about my body and keeping it healthy and well, and going through all the fertility that we went through, going through Hashimoto's, being
Mm.
able to take care of myself throughout that journey, and having kids at 41 and 44, and then being able to get back into training and working with clients at that time, then that was a natural progression for me to start working with pre and postnatal women. And so I did that for another 5 years as afterwards, after having kids, because it made sense for me. I was already knee deep in it, and it was something I had researched a lot more about, and it worked with my lifestyle at that time. And I was also living in LA, and so we could do a lot more outdoor beach training and
Yes.
beach camps
Yeah.
and beach and sunshine, everything.
Not so much here in Seattle, right?
I know. My business model definitely changed here in Seattle.
Oh my gosh, I bet. No, I think that's really, really cool to hear how it's transitioned throughout the years that you've owned, your business. And I love that. I think that more people need to follow their intuition when it comes to that. And, a lot of the listeners are newer in business. They might be in their first year or maybe even starting to plan the business they want. They want to leave their corporate. And it is hard to think about like, what do I want to do for the next 40 so years of my life before I retire? And it's promising to hear that like it can change. Like whatever you want, it can change.
Absolutely. And it might not even be something that you can even envision right now. I
Yeah.
mean, who knew that we would be doing all kinds of things like this? I mean, I had
Right.
20 years ago, even, that these video podcasts would be a thing. And so, being able to be open enough and be savvy enough to keep learning and to keep growing and see, okay, that's a good fit. That would be definitely something I could add into my business. Or, oh no, that's not something that makes sense for me or my clients.
Hmm.
Knowing the difference. And I think getting started in a business, you don't have to have the next 20 years planned out. Because maybe 5 years is a good leeway of planning, because new things are coming up so much faster each time. And so you got to leave yourself a little bit of wiggle room to either pivot into a new direction or change course. And being open will allow you to be able to see the opportunities that will come your way. And then you can follow your intuition to be able to say, hey, that's a great fit, or nope, I like this path that I'm on because this is really feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What tips do you have for anyone wanting to get into the fitness space and maybe are trying to build up their clientele?
Well, it's interesting because you could say, in one hand, it's such a saturated market because it is
Mhm.
one of the saturated markets. However, I would say getting into that, into a fitness business, is finding a niche, finding what kind of style you're going to use, what type of a training program are you going to use, what kind of clientele do you want to work with, what are your tools that you're going to use, and thinking about a couple things that will set you aside so you can really attract your ideal client. Because, I mean, if you say, I work with women in menopause, okay, well, that is one kind of niche, but then what else? How else can you narrow that down? So, what are some other things that you can bring to the table? So, okay, I work with menopause women who also have gone through Hashimoto's, or I
Mhm.
with women who've had shoulder injuries and I help rehabilitate them and get them back in balance. Or I work with women who've never exercised before and feel intimidated.
Yeah.
So, finding these there, I mean, there's so the possibilities are endless, and that is the great thing about fitness, because there's always new ways of training and coming up, and
Mhm.
the way you blend your training together to get results for your clients can be a unique selling feature as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it also helps people qualify themselves if they want to work with you or not, right? They might
Hmm.
love your personality, but if they are not in your niche, then they're probably
Yeah.
not going to get the results that you want to give them. So I always agree with that. Like, the more niche you can get, the better, because it helps you build that community around what you're trying to build, right? It's not
Yeah.
just I'm doing this to do this. It's like I'm on a mission to make this happen, and I'm able to really do that by working with such a specific group of people.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I decided to add yoga into my niche, it was right after I was finished competing, and I had never really experienced yoga, and so my interpretation was like, how could somebody get to a yoga mat and be all energetic the rest of the day if you're starting your day out like with this really zen kind of, peaceful moment? I'm like, I want to get the day going and get excited.
Yep.
But until I experienced that, whoa, game changer. It's like, it's not that I'm waking up to go back to sleep. I'm waking up to get centered so I can understand about my day and get my intention set. And it's a whole different type of movement. And a couple of the things that really attracted me to it was I have been in so much competitive, outwardly driven, because of gymnastics you're
Hmm.
judged by a judge, and you're judged on each of your events. In fitness you're judged by your physique and your skills, and so I'm like, I need to not be judged someplace.
Yes.
And so I found that movement on a yoga mat was the most lovely thing. Like, I could push myself if I wanted to, and I was feeling strong and wanted to challenge myself into a new pose. Or those days where you just don't have a high energy, I could come back to the mat and go into child's pose. And you know what? Both of them are okay. Just wonderful. And I had never experienced anything like that. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this needs to be known.
Yeah. Do you think that your competitive edge has really like pushed you forward in business? Do you think that that's been like a driving force in what you do?
Yes, I say that hesitantly because I feel like drives me to be better for myself and for my clients,
Hmm.
but I'm not competing with others in the sense of I want to be ranked number one trainer in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that kind of competitive, but it's the sense of doing my best each day and doing my best not only for myself but for my clients and my family, and knowing those days where it's like you have great energy and you want to forge ahead, and knowing those days where like, whew, I need to just take a breath here.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and the difference of allowing a flow to happen versus trying to force things to happen. And I think that has come with experience in having a business and running a business.
Absolutely.
Knowing the difference of allowing the flow and attraction of clients. And so I have loved having been able to build upon that using flow and not forcing things.
For sure. Definitely. Oh, I love that. Do you have any other pieces of advice you want to share or any topics you want to talk about before we get into what you're doing now and also some action steps for the week?
Oh, yes. For someone getting started in your fitness journey, that's the first step. Just get started. Just get
Yeah.
moving. And for someone who has been on a fitness journey or has recently had a setback, know that it's okay. We will have injuries, we will have setbacks, we will have weight fluctuations, but know that it's not the end of everything. That
Hmm.
tomorrow is a new day. It is a clean slate that you can start over on and do the best that you can do on that day.
I love that. That's great advice for fitness and business.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So, Laura, every week I ask my guests to challenge the audience with a couple things to do. That way, instead of just listening to this episode and turning it off, they have some action steps to take. So, what are 3 pieces of action you'd love the audience to take after they listen to this conversation?
I love that. Okay. First action step. We are going to add steps into your day, whether it's taking a 10-minute walk. If you're already walking, add an extra 10 minutes to what you're doing. So just getting your body moving. Okay. So there's some cardio for
Hmm.
strength. Drop down and let's get some push-ups in. Whether it's 3 push-ups, you can have your knees down on the floor, hands over here. Strength is so important, building our muscle and then maintaining our muscle. As we start to age, our muscle starts to decline. And what happens is when we start to decline like that, then a lot of other things happen, like injuries and poor posture and poor bone density. So let's keep that strength going. You don't have to lift hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight, but it does have to be consistent. And the last piece I would say is mobility, which could be yoga. It could be stretching at night. I mean, when you're watching TV, you could sit on the floor and reach forward to touch your toes, do a gentle stretch like that, cross a leg, twist the body, get a torso twist. Adding gentle stretches throughout the day or as you're starting your day or finishing your day are a really great way to enhance blood circulation. And when we enhance blood circulation, then that goes throughout the body. It goes into your brain and helps with focus and clarity. So keeping your bones, your joints mobile and limber, then it's really going to help carry everything else through your body as well.
I love that. I mean, the connection between health and everything is just so important. And so I think that's great advice for the listeners just to keep those in mind because there are days in our business where we're sitting behind a desk for hours and hours and don't get up. And so your health is the most important thing, definitely. Yeah.
Well, and there's a quote I'll share with you is when you have your health, you can think of 1,000 different things. And when you don't have your health, you think about one thing.
Mm.
So knowing that you really do need to take care of yourself to take care of your business so you can be at your full game, best person today, then knowing that give yourself those 10-minute, even if it's like a 10-minute break, like after you record a podcast, okay,
Yeah.
let me walk around the block once and like clear my brain or take your dog for a walk or
Yeah.
get outside for a few minutes. Or if you live in a place with stairs, run up and down the stairs a couple times.
Yep.
It all
Yeah.
adds up. So
It
if you don't have
does.
like a chunk of time to do that, then do them in different, smaller increments.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Laura, where can the audience connect with you and tell us a little bit about how they can work with you too?
Absolutely. Well, on social media, you'll see me on Instagram at Laura Mak Fit Life. And you can check out my website at lauramakfitlife.com. And there's a link there. So if you wanted to do yoga classes with me or strength training classes, you can see those at theyogafitlife.com. So
Awesome. Do you
those
do
are
those
3
virtually?
places. Those are, yeah, so that's an online studio. So we have full classes and you can do those at your own time at home based on your schedule. So we've got a variety of between 10 and 50-minute yoga classes, and same for the strength classes. So you can pick what your
Awesome.
body needs that day. Then we have some recovery in there, and then it also includes some nutrition. As far as like, I'll do each month I do a new weekly plan. A lot of times people get stuck in their same meals and are like, oh, what can I do? So I always add a week's worth of nutrition that has your grocery shopping list and lays it out of like how to prepare your meal. And so it's a nice way to just start adding into the regular meals that you're already doing, or to get some inspiration.
Awesome. Well, Laura, I've had so much fun with this conversation. I'm glad that we got the chance to talk. And I feel like just there's so many people I know who want to break into the fitness space. And I think that this conversation will really help them understand that it is possible. Just go for it. And as you adapt as a person and change, so will your business.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure being here, and I hope that I can leave some inspiration for starting business and keeping the body healthy.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.